The movie begins by showing a luxury car driving towards the military base, stopping in front of the gate. Then, the soldiers who were on guard rushed to get ready, take out their weapons, and approached the car. A woman came out of the car in a hurry. Then she said that she wanted to go to the toilet. Because there was nothing suspicious, the soldiers allowed her to use the toilet. But suddenly, the warning alarm in the military base went off and there was a man wearing a helmet sneaking into the building. While the woman was already outside the window and took the keys using her high heels and put them under the car. On the other hand, the situation inside the building was starting to get chaotic because the soldiers saw the man who was sneaking in. After the incident, a man named Jonathan called someone named JC the intruder. Jonathan gave him a new task to look for 12 bronze heads of the animals of the Chinese zodiac. Of course, JC would get an amazing payment. Elsewhere, at an auction in Paris, a man named Michael Morgan from MP Corporation managed to get 4 of the rarest stamps in the world. But when he was interviewed, he tore 3 of the stamps, so there was only 1 rare stamp left in the world, which made the price higher. When Michael came to his father's office, Jonathan was there. That day, they held a meeting to discuss how likely they would be to win the auction of rare items, the 5 bronze heads of the animals of the Chinese zodiac. This time, their rivals were businessmen who would even do anything to get the bronze heads. Michael's father, Lawrence Morgan, started to think about how to get all the bronze heads. Then Jonathan suggested asking JC to do the work. However, Michael said that JC had not found a painting called The Roses. This was the job they had previously given to JC. Lawrence didn't agree with his son because he still believed in JC. If JC succeeded in bringing all the bronze heads, then there will be a big bonus for him, 1 million per head. And if JC gets a dragon head, then 10 million will be added for him. In another place, JC was already in Beijing, under the guise of a reporter named Martin from National Geographic. There, Martin met Professor Guan, saying that he wanted to cover 12 bronze heads, and Professor Guan was the expert. After that, Professor Guan showed identical replicas of the bronze heads, which were almost exactly the same, and Martin was the first journalist to see it. When Martin was going to take a photo, Professor Guan strictly forbade him. Then Martin asked if the 5 heads had been auctioned, so how with the rest? Professor Guan answered that there were indeed many rumors about the bronze heads' whereabouts. One of his students in Paris, an antiquities expert, said that he had recently examined a rabbit and a mouse head that were being auctioned. Hearing this, Martin said that he wanted to contact the person. After talking with Professor Guan, Martin asked permission to touch the artificial heads, and the professor allowed it. But it turned out that they were not just ordinary gloves, but had scan sensor technology, which went directly into JC's team computer in another place. With their advanced technology, they immediately made the same clone. Long story short, Martin or JC was already at the airport in Paris with 2 fake head statues and got a customs letter. While on the way, they stopped for a moment, then JC and his team threw the head statues into the river. Apparently, JC had made an appointment to meet Professor Guan's student, Coco. JC said that he was Martin Sang Guan, who was Sang Guan Mating's cousin. Even though Coco didn't believe it, she then introduced Martin to her colleagues, telling them that Martin was a reporter from National Geographic. Coco said that the aim of their organization was to restore lost heritage from various countries, including 12 bronze heads of the animals of the Chinese zodiac. When Martin saw a photo of the bronze head, Coco told him that the head was in a castle and she had checked that the 2 bronze heads were genuine. Martin pointed his camera at the 2 photos, but Coco forbade him to take photos. Not long after that, 2 of Coco's friends came. They were injured because they were beaten. Because of that, everyone focused on Coco's injured friends. So here, Martin took this opportunity to quickly take a photo that was prohibited. However, it turned out that his camera had no batteries and no memory. Martin then approached the 2 injured men and introduced himself as a reporter. One of Coco's friends said that Martin had to reveal MP's crimes, but Choco didn't seem to want Martin to know more about their organization, and asked Martin to leave immediately. Before leaving, Martin grabbed Coco, but that was his way of getting his watch directed to take 2 photos of the bronze heads. When JC was in the office with his team, who were processing the photos from his watch, They arranged plans to enter the mansion to retrieve 2 original bronze heads. Not long after that, JC was seen spying from the top of a tree with his binoculars. Then JC got down from the tree and started his action. Shortly, JC managed to get into the mansion with his sophisticated equipment. He also found a tool hidden in a very neat bookshelf. But he had to enter 3 combinations of letters and numbers as the password to open a secret door. When JC was hiding, he saw the arrangement of books, which was a bit strange. Then he turned his glasses towards the books, and finally he found the password combination. JC managed to find 2 of the bronze heads. He also finally found a painting called The Roses, which they had been looking for a long time. When JC walked out of the room casually, it turned out there were 2 people who saw him, and one of them was Coco. When JC landed on the side of the road, Coco saw him and immediately approached him. Then, Coco asked if Martin had been in the mansion. And at the same time, the guards saw Coco and Martin together. Then the guards who saw it thought that Coco and Martin were in cahoots. Coco still forced Martin to confess what he did in the mansion. Then Martin asked her to go first to the boathouse. Meanwhile, Martin would go to Simon, who got ready. After that, Martin went to the boathouse and Coco was still suspicious of him. Martin started lying again about his identity by saying that he is working for a secret corporation that is trying to recover all the lost relics for China. Martin also lies that the bronze head will be returned to the Chinese government. Hearing this, Coco strongly agreed. Not long after, the mansion's security came to the boathouse. At the same time, the police came and took them all to the police station. Luckily, JC, Simon, and Coco were released because there was no evidence that made them guilty, while the 2 bronze heads will be detained for 2 weeks. After that, when JC was walking with the others, he was approached by a woman named Catherine. Catherine invited JC and his team to come to Catherine de Sickle, a castle belonging to her. Long story short, JC along with his team, including Coco, had arrived at Catherine's castle. Here, Catherine greeted them warmly, and as they went upstairs, JC saw the bronze head of a rooster. Catherine then told them that her great-grandfather was an explorer and he had just disappeared. Because Catherine knew that JC had a bronze head, she thought it was also possible that he had clues about her great-grandfather. Soon after that, Catherine invited the JC and his team to enter the antique storage room, and here Coco started examining the items. Meanwhile, JC's team looked for a way to steal the bronze head of the rooster. Suddenly, Coco found a painting of Qianlong Emperor's autumn hunt. Catherine explained that the painting was obtained when her great-great-grandfather sailed to China and managed to confiscate the painting. So, without thinking twice, Coco immediately put the painting in her bag to return it to the Chinese government. Catherine apologized and said it was all belonging to the bank. Then JC said that he was interested in helping find Catherine's great-grandfather. Catherine was very happy to hear this and immediately prepared a room for them. Shortly after, they started their mission and Coco immediately asked for data from Professor Guan to make a replica. JC, Coco, and the team cleaned up the room where they would start their work. After they succeeded in making the replica of the bronze head of the rooster, they immediately exchanged it with the original one. JC and Bonnie gave their loot to Jonathan without Coco knowing. Not long after that, they immediately went by ship to look for Catherine's great-grandfather. They looked for a clue that they saw in a painting, and finally, they found it. Now they started their adventure, spreading in the forest, and suddenly there was a sound of Coco and Catherine's screaming. It turned out that Coco slipped and was holding on to Catherine's leg, who also almost fell. Simon and David immediately followed Bonnie, who called them. It turned out they had fallen at the place they were looking for, in Catherine's great-grandfather's ship. When Catherine checked around the ship, she found a ring that belonged to her great-grandfather. Near the ring, there was a corpse with only bones left. Meanwhile, Simon and David found hidden treasure. They immediately invited Bonnie and JC to see their findings. But when they were happy and singing, suddenly a man named Pierre arrived with his friend. They were secretly following JC and his team, and at that moment, they were surprised by the arrival of the pirates. JC told Pierre that if they worked together, they could defeat the pirates. The pirates start to threaten them, and Pierre comes forward. saying that he is not part of JC's team and his boss will give whatever money they ask. The pirate believed Pierre and told his men to bring Pierre and his friends. And when the pirates were off guard, JC, Simon, David, and Bonnie started attacking them. They were lucky enough, because when they were fighting, they actually found the bronze heads of Snake and Goat. With great efforts, JC and his team were finally able to get out of that place by climbing a tree trunk. They went back to the ship and pulled out a tree trunk containing a lot of gold. The next morning, Coco began to realize what JC and his team was really looking for. Coco began to uncover JC's lies, and for Coco, these bronzes are the dignity of the nation, which symbolizes their cultural heritage. Coco felt very angry because JC had no sense of patriotism in himself. Then, suddenly, the position of the tree trunk they were pulling on the ship was changed, which resulted in all the gold bars falling and scattering inside the sea. In another place, Professor Guan was visited by the police to help catch the bronze heads thief. The auction of the bronze heads became a topic of discussion in the news, because it caused controversy in various countries and many people held demonstrations so that the relics would be returned. On the other hand, Bonnie and David were bringing the news that MP Corporation has won the auction rights to the bronze head of the dragon, and soon it will be marketed. It turned out they have been cheated because the MP Corporation has been keeping the bronze head of the dragon all this time, while they will not get the big bonus that was promised. Apparently, Jonathan was also lying to them. In another place, Coco and her friends were seen watching the news. Suddenly, the police came and showed them a photo. It was a photo of the person who beat Coco's two friends. Not long after that, the auction of the bronze head of the dragon started, but with their strategy, the bronze was not sold. Then 3 of Coco's friends were seen spying on MP Corporation, but unfortunately, they were caught by Michael Morgan's bodyguard. Meanwhile, JC looked very happy because his wife had finally contacted him after being annoyed with JC for a long time. They then arranged a time to meet. And not long after, Coco came to JC and said that 3 of her friends had disappeared, and one of them was the only sibling that she had. Coco begged JC for help as her last hope. She also said that Professor Guan was detained by the police because he gave the data. Here, JC couldn't say much, then Coco and her friends left. Suddenly, Bonnie cried after reading the letter left by Simon. It turned out that Bonnie and Simon already had a child, but they decided to divorce. In the letter, which contained a photo, the child wrote a question asking whether her parents should divorce. After that, JC contacted Jonathan and said that he had the roses painting. And when Jonathan arrived there, Bonnie immediately interrogated him, asking him to be honest with them. Finally, Jonathan admitted that he had lied from the start. JC and Bonnie visited Michael Morgan with the roses painting. Michael immediately checked the authenticity of the painting, while JC and Bonnie went around the replica making room. There, they met a man named Fulcher, and it was discovered that he had the same job as JC. Fulcher stole a Buddha statue from a temple in Southeast Asia, and it sparked a war on the border, killing thousands of people. Fulcher also warned JC that he wouldn't live long and called JC trash, so a fight was inevitable. Michael stopped their fight. Meanwhile, Bonnie saw several guards bringing food to a room. Bonnie suspected that the 3 students were being held in that room. Shortly, JC gave a discount offer for the roses painting as long as Michael wanted to free those 3 prisoners. However, Michael pretended not to know about the 3 students and asked JC to prove what he said. Because of that, JC started to act to prove his words, but he was blocked by the guards. During their fight, suddenly the steam furnace leaked and started emitting gas until finally it exploded, destroying the place where the replica was made. JC continued to try and search for the 3 students, and finally he succeeded in finding them and took them out of detention. After that incident, Lawrence Morgan came and was furious because he saw the chaos in the room. Michael then reported to his father that all of this was JC's doing, but Lawrence told him to be quiet and reminded Michael that their job was to fake things, not kidnapping people. And when Lawrence saw the original painting called The Roses, he was very surprised and hoped to meet JC in a different situation, saying that he would take the painting for free in exchange for the chaos that occurred. He also told JC and the students to immediately leave the place. Not long after that, the bronze head of the dragon auction was seen again, but because there were no bids due to the demonstrations, MP Corporation threatened to throw the bronze head of the dragon into the volcano. Fulcher was on the plane, ordered by Lawrence to throw away the bronze head of the dragon. When the auction deadline passed, Lawrence immediately ordered Fulcher to throw it away. At that time, many media covered 3 people who got out of the plane to complete the mission, throwing away the bronze head of the dragon. But the journalists who were covering from the helicopter said that there was a 4th parachuter. Fulcher, who had landed, immediately took the bronze head of the dragon and placed it near JC. Then Simon and David ran to save JC. Sometime later, JC woke up in the hospital and was with his team, watching the news about the arrest of Lawrence and Michael from MP Corporation. There, JC listened to a voice message from his wife who was angry because he didn't keep his promise to meet her. Not long after, Simon was seen with his daughter and met Bonnie. There, Simon said he wanted to start their relationship from the beginning. Meanwhile, David was also happy because that day his child had been born. JC was surprised and also felt very happy seeing his wife come to meet him.